Alright, this is a video for summary review sheet number 4, problems 8 and 9. In problem 8 you're asked how much excess reagents is left over. So let's review what our equation is. Once we balanced it, we had 2 C6H10 plus 17O2 yielding 12 CO2 and 10 H2O. Alright, so that's our equation. And based on the stoichiometric calculations we did, we saw that we could make either 113 grams of CO2 or 43.7 grams of carbon dioxide. The 113 could be made with the amount given of C6H10, and the 43.7 could be formed with the O2. So then this would be our limiting reagent, and that would be our excess reagent. So remember, we worked these out as if they were independent, but actually they're occurring at the same time. You are mixing the 35 grams of C6H10 with the 45 grams of O2. So they're both combining, and question 8 is asking how much would be left over. Alright, the way you're going to do this is you're going to calculate the amount of C6H10 that is actually consumed in this reaction. So we're going to work it out based on the 45 grams of oxygen that the problem gives us. So we have 45 grams of O2. We're going to do the same thing, but now instead of finding the product, we're going to find out how much C6H10 was consumed. So we have 45 grams of O2 with 1 mole of oxygen. We're doing the same thing. We're converting it to moles. And based on our ratio, our 2 to 17 ratio, I have 2 moles of C6H10 with 17 moles of O2. This cancels out my moles of O2. So then I can be left with grams of C6H10 with 1 mole of C6H10. I look at my molar mass of C6H10, that's 82 grams. So then I run the calculation. So I have 45 divided by 32 times 2 divided by 17 times 82. And that gives me about 13.56. So I'm going to say about 13.6. That's how much C6H10 I used up in my reaction that is limited by my 45 grams of oxygen. So I actually was given 35 grams of C6H10, but I only used 13.6 grams of C6H10. So 35 minus 13.6 gives me about 21.4 grams of C6H10 left over. Alright, so to recap, we found out which one was our limiting reagent. We found that to be oxygen. Once we knew oxygen was the limiting reagent, based on how much CO2 was formed, we then are going to redo a stoichiometric calculation to find how much C6H10 was consumed by reacting 45 grams of O2. We're doing the same thing, but instead of finding CO2, we're going to find out how much C6H10 was consumed. By doing that, we found that it was about 13.6. Then we're just subtracting the 13.6 of C6H10 that we used by the total 35 grams given in the problem to find that we have 21.4 grams of C6H10 left over. Question 9 is a little bit easier. Question 9 is asking us, if we only made 35 grams of, let me look at my problem, of carbon dioxide, what was my percent yield? So I only made 35 grams, but I was supposed to make 43.7. So like any percent, I have my total on bottom and my actual on top. So think of it as a grade. You were supposed to get 43.7 points possible. You only got 35 points. So you're going to do 35 divided by 43.7. That times 100 will give you about 80.1. So your yield was only about 80%, which is a pretty good yield. Alright, and that's how you do it. Actual over theoretical times 100.